Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another Trotec Laser Live on Fridays. So happy that you could join us today with Tim and Andy. We are going to be talking about the Galvos today, principally, but I just wanted to say once again, as always, thank you to everyone who's joining us live in chat, on the stream, anybody who's watching this later on YouTube, be it with the Trotec Laser USA channel, with our channel here in Canada. We are so glad you guys are checking it out, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to toss them in the chat. We'll be very happy to grab them as we go along. Daniel, joining right now. You are actually joining as we speak, so not to worry. Very happy to have you in, man. Let me introduce the two gentlemen who are here with me today, the guys who really know what they're talking about. I'm basically just here to make funnies and keep things moving along. To my camera, left, right, this way, that one, is Tim. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, doing good. Always excited to show off the Galvos.
Yes, the Galvos. My secret favorite, not so secret anymore because I end up mentioning it pretty much every week. Anyone who's been with Trotec for a little while knows that Speedmark is one of the secret, best kept secrets about Trotec. It is such a great software. We're going to get Tim to kind of show it off a little bit more today. But joining us from the United States, Andy, how are you, sir?
Good. Hi, everyone.
Very, very lucky to have Andy with us this week. We've been fortunate, actually, in the last couple of weeks. We've been doing a little bit more collaborations with our friends at Trotec Laser USA. They have a ton of knowledge, a ton of history in the laser industry. I'd love to ask Andy, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do with Trotec, maybe a little bit of history in the laser industry, or kind of where you come from?
Sure. I'm the industrial sales manager for Trotec USA. I've been in the laser industry since 1998. And have specialized in Galvo and large format lasers over that time, specifically in the industrial type applications.
So principally in the fiber optics, kind of the metal marking sort of areas, I would guess.
Yes, definitely. Anything from fully integrated systems to our standalone workstations.
Oh, very cool. Have you gotten to be a part of some installations, like custom installations for Galvo machines and things?
Yes, quite a few over the years, from simple to a very sophisticated major inline marking.
Oh, that's cool. That's something I'd love to ask you more about. So this is something we don't often get to talk about, but the Galvo machines in particular have this great facility to be integrated into, any number of different sort of unique placements, and particularly, I think, as you're seeing here on the screen, the Speedmark software is so flexible that it allows for, all manner of different applications. I think you said specifically, though, you were interested in kind of industrial marking. Would it be the sort of things that we're kind of seeing here in the video, like a lot of barcode marking, scanning, that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Part identification and traceability has been a big part of that, and that can be anything from just human readable part numbers on parts to 2D or QR codes that are read and then kept track of through the manufacturing process.
Very cool. I will say I was very fortunate this week to get to attend FabTech here in Toronto with Miguel, which is why I'm joining you once again from the Ontario office. I feel like I'm back at home, but we got to meet with a lot of great customers this week who do exactly what you're talking about, that sort of traceability aspect. And it's still, when I think of industrial marking, my mind goes specifically towards a couple applications in particular. And I think the things that people are doing these days with Galvos is so widespread and so impressive. I really have to redefine what I think of as a typical kind of Galvo application. Tim actually is going to be doing some pretty cool stuff for us this morning. He's prepared some sort of very, I have to say, I'll take the heat off of Andy really quick. Tim, do you want to show us a little bit of, how do you want to go about this? Because do you want to keep it a surprise? I think what you have is really cool.
I'll keep my own work as a surprise, but for now, I'll showcase what I've been working on, just to showcase a bit of the Galvo's abilities. So here I have a black anodized aluminum card. Just able to work with the Galvo on that. So I'll be showcasing this today. The next step, the next thing we'll be showcasing, this is a bit of a fan favorite in my opinion. Been taking it to a lot of shows. Little bottle opener with a blueprint of the Galvo machine. Love this one. Everyone likes a beer opener. So I love working with this one. And then the third one's going to be a little surprise. Bit of a pattern. A bit psychedelic. I like it.
I have to say, you joke about everyone loves a beer opener, but trying to keep those even in stock at a trade show was tricky. Yeah. I mean, I'll throw it to Andy, but it's still, I know I've mentioned this a bunch of times, but it still blows me away. Even just getting to do pens in the speed marker, people at a trade show, it's incredible to draw just that personalization of a simple thing using this machine can sort of bring about.
Yeah, very impressive part of Galvo is the speed that it can mark, up to 10 times faster than a gantry flatbed system. So it can be very impressive to see, personal identification that can be done in seconds. Can be very fast.
Absolutely. I think people don't understand how fast right up until we actually get to show it off. So I'm going to have Tim, get started on the marking. I have to say, I'm glad you're starting with something simple like the black anodized card, but don't think that just because it's simple, it won't be impressive.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I always tell people, so 10 times you say, Andy. Wow. That's so cool. Okay. So having seen that, I'll remind everyone that Tim and Andy really know their stuff about Galvo. So any questions you would like to ask, please throw them in the chat and we'll be very happy to grab them for you guys. But just that alone, I think, is incredibly impressive.
And what we're seeing there on anodized, it can also be done with a CO2 laser because you're just removing the anodized surface from the aluminum. But with the fiber laser, which we're using at this time, a 20-watt fiber laser, it still removes the surface, but again, very much faster than a CO2 laser. And that's based on the wavelength of the laser, but also the method that the beam is moved with a galvanometer versus an XY movement. So a lot of advantage in certain areas.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, so why, I mean, in your opinion, why would somebody, if they're interested in Trotec, but they're not sure where to begin, why would somebody maybe be looking at a Galvo laser as opposed to a CO2 or kind of more of like a flatbed system, as you say?
For metal engraving, obviously with CO2, you can remove surface coatings, anodized paint. But as far as bare metal, say stainless steel, you would need to use a Surmark or some other type of material to get contrast on those base raw materials. With fiber laser, you can get contrast without any prep. So that would be one reason, is if you need contrast, you can do that with a fiber laser without any prep. Also, as we mentioned, speed. A lot of industrial or even personalization applications, if you need to do 10,000 pens and you can cut your time in half, it's a huge benefit.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, Galvo laser has a limited engraving area. It's a fixed head, so you can go up to about our standard lens is up to 190 by 190 millimeter area, and so if you need large pieces, sometimes the gantry or flatbed is still a great solution or a better solution than Galvo. But whenever we're talking about single piece that needs a quick or short cycle time, a big advantage. I guess another thing to add would be very small, detailed engraving. With a Galvo laser, the beam diameter or spot size is considerably smaller than CO2. So you're able to engrave or mark very small, detailed graphics or characters with good legibility.
Very, very true. And you could even see, I mean, Tim, I don't know if you can hold up that anodized card again to the camera, but the quality of, as you pointed out, Andy, the quality of legibility and marking on that. There it is. Yes. Always the toughest part of the stream. No, not at all.
Yup. Oh God, I don't know where it's going.
It's all good. It's all good. I mean, as you said, Andy, the level of legibility when it comes to on anodized, but then even on, as you showed on the bottle opener, Tim, directly onto an item like stainless steel. I mean, that is something that, by and large, when it comes to the flatbed systems, you struggle to be able to mark. I mean, certainly you can use Surmark or a marking compound like that, but it adds a level of an extra kind of step in the production, right? That, or several extra steps that kind of not only adds to your production time, but also the production difficulty. I mean, in terms of making sure that you don't have overspray or you have that kind of consistent level of Surmark on every piece. This is a solution that I would add adds a lot of, or I would suggest adds a lot of ease to your production, takes a lot of stress off of your operators. It is just kind of a plug and play. One thing too I would mention, I wanted to ask you, so in terms of, when you install a Galvo, the actual system itself is entirely self-contained. You don't, it comes with the computer and everything. You just basically need do you need a separate Windows PC when you have the Galvo installed, or are you able to sort of run it just with a screen?
The systems do include the industrial PC in the workstations. There is an option to provide your own PC as well. You can use a laptop if desired. There is Ethernet connection to the control rack of the laser. So there are options in that, but for a turnkey solution, we do provide that with an industrial PC.
That's very cool. I mean, I feel like we've started to talk a little bit about the sort of customers who'll be looking at a Galvo, but I did want to, Tim's got the bottle opener in there. I did want to start to also explore the other things that people can think about with the Galvo laser. I mean, I want to ask you, Andy, typically the first thing that I think of is going to be metal marking. So stainless steel, titanium, aluminum, that sort of thing. But, what are the range of materials that a laser like this is going to be, comfortable working with if somebody's completely, new to the Galvo laser world?
Sure. Well, I'd like to mention back to the metal marking first. A huge advantage with Galvo is you can do deep engraving. Very complicated and time consuming with a gantry flatbed system. With Galvo, we're able to go to an infinite depth through just the way that it removes the material, but also we can do programmable Z-axis to optimize that engraving. We even have a tool in our software that gives you the ability to change the angle of removal and optimize that entire engraving process to get very clean, accurate, deep engraving. But going to other materials, plastics, a great advantage with a fiber laser in Galvo is that with plastics, you can get a contrast, unlike CO2 that essentially melts the plastic material. Fiber laser and a lot of wide range of plastics gives a contrasted mark. So very good for identification of plastic parts. There's a wide range of other materials and a wide range of the plastics, but also composite materials, ceramics, that type of thing. A fiber laser, what it cannot mark is organic materials. So wood, glass, rubber, natural rubber. It does not react to the wavelength of a fiber laser. So anything else that has a surface coating or composite materials, as I mentioned, have very good reaction to that wavelength.
So I know one of the things that we got a lot of questions about this week, and it's one I'm sure you get questions about all the time, is things like Yeti mugs, so powder-coated materials. Those would fall into the same sort of anodized area. They'd be perfectly fine with the Galvo laser, I assume?
Yes, powder-coated drinkware. We do have customers that remove that surface and do it quite well. It is challenging compared to CO2. CO2 is actually better on the powder coating because it does not affect the base metal. With a fiber laser, you can effectively remove the powder coating, but if it's out of adjustment, say the Z position is too low, you can also affect that base metal. So again, it can be done. It does quite well. The big advantage is the speed at which it can do it compared to CO2. We have options for 3D, which is a dynamic shifter on the Galvo that allows you to engrave around a curved surface without rotating it. It automatically adjusts for the curvature. So we have a lot of options for drinkware, and in some cases, it can be a very good solution for powder coating.
100%. You make a very good point. See, this is something that I mentioned at the show this week. I said, exactly as you said, if speed is your principal goal, 100%. It's a great solution. I mean, you saw how quickly everyone, I think, saw how quickly Tim marked that bottle opener and how beautifully the mark turned out. But you do have to be really careful about the adjustment in order that you're not actually cutting into the exterior of your thermally insulated bottle. We had a great question here in the chat that I wanted to pass by you. I believe you spoke about it before, but the maximum engraving area when you're looking at a Galvo machine, obviously it depends on the size of the Galvo, but would you be able to give us kind of a general range?
Mm-hmm. Sure. We have options for the lens, the optics that are used with the system. The standard is a 120 by 120 millimeter marking area. That is our 160 millimeter lens. From there, we go up to, can actually go up to 310 by 310 on the marking area. So anywhere from 70 to 70 up to 310 by 310. But we also have workstations that have XY movement of the head that extends that usable area up to, going into inches, but 17 by 39 inch engraving area. So how that's done is it moves the head to different zones that cover that optical area that it can engrave in.
Never worry about going into inches. I'm glad you did, because I still haven't been able to make the millimeter conversions in my head at all, I'm afraid. So we will come back to Andy really shortly here. I want to hear more about his experience with the Galvo lasers, but Tim has actually prepared a really great sort of breakdown, a top to bottom breakdown for us. And I we're about 15 minutes in here. I figure it's a great time to maybe pass it over to Tim. What do you think, Bud? Are you ready to maybe kind of walk us through some of the speed marker basics and stuff?
Oh, definitely.
Thank you, sir. Take it away.
All right. So SpeedMark, just like all of our other softwares, are very intuitive, simple to use, and I'll make sure to walk through it to the best of my ability today. So right now on my screen, I have a current existing project, but I'm going to start a new one for you guys. So I will go up to the top left corner. I'll press on File, open up New Program. I'll make changes to my current file. And here I am presented with a blank canvas. So as Andy mentioned, this is a 120 millimeter by 120 millimeter canvas that I'm working on. On the actual laser cam, I also have tape to outline the working space as well, just so we understand a bit better with the space that we do have to work with. So working with the software, if you are familiar with our software Ruby or Job Control, we have very, very basic graphic design details. So one of the first details that I like to sort of point out are basic elements such as the drawing the circle tool. We also have the ability to throw down simple shapes like squares, and we could edit the scale of these shapes. We could also change the dimensions, and we could unlock and lock the proportions as we go. We can also remove these objects, and if needed be, we could also right-click on the object, go all the way down to a line, and select 0 point. This will make sure that our object is perfectly in the middle. So instead of placing it and trying to move it around, we have a perfect precision tool to make sure that it's perfectly in the middle. Some of the next options we have are also adding in text. So we could drag a text box in, and we start typing up our own little customized text. We also have a ton of fonts available as well. Any font that your computer has and recognizes will be shown in the software as well. So if you have downloaded customized fonts, don't worry, the software will see it too. For sake of this example, we're going to use little band script, and we're just going to type in Trotec 123 as a simple test. So here we go. Here we have our text. Now, one thing you guys might notice is that all of these shapes and objects that I'm putting in are put in with no filling. This is because we have to put in our own fill on every project that we put into SpeedMark. So to get around this area, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my text over here. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to move over to the right side of my screen where it gives me the option for filling. So in this tab here, which is called the Graphic Properties tab, we have 6 different options that we can go through, but for the time being, I'm going to focus on the fill. I'm going to head over to Fill Style, and I'm presented with 4 options. We have parallel lines, bidirectional, and then cross-line parallels and cross-line bidirectional. Parallel lines will go as the word means, biparallel lines. Bidirectional will go back and forth. And cross lines, parallel and bidirectional will mean the same things, but they will create a cross line pattern as they're going. So a bidirectional pattern will go side to side, and then cross line bidirectional will go side to side, and then up and down as well.
Can I interrupt you really quick, Tim?
Yeah, for sure.
So this sort of fill pattern, Andy, with this sort of what you were discussing earlier, when you were talking about being able to decide like the depth of marking and the way in which you'd like to fill out a piece. It was sort of with this sort of the essentially like the cross hatching, I guess is how I think about it, of the way the laser is going to move across the graphic.
Yes, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, you use a different fill pattern. For deep engraving, we would usually use bidirectional, but then there's a deep engraving module that is in the software in addition to this that gives you the ability to change the angle that it is moving across your graphic. The advantage with that is think about snow plowing. If you push the snow the same direction every time, you get a huge pile at the other side. But if you push it different directions each time you go through, you have smaller piles all around the edge, so it appears better as a plowed area. Kind of a crude way to describe it, but it's the same with material removal. You optimize it by removing the material in different directions at different angles, so that when you're done, you have a cleaner edge and not as much buildup. So it results in a much cleaner engraving. But as far as the simple fill, say you're only doing an annealed mark or an engraving, some of this has to do with the speed as well. Parallel lines are going to be very fast. If you do crosshair bidirectional, then it's going to take longer because more passes.
By the way, not a crude explanation at all. You're talking to Canadians. So any snowplow related metaphor is going to be 100% successful. But so a question here from Doug at HBA. So is it similar to sort of the hatching you might see in other engraving software then? Sort of a similar kind of idea.
I'm sorry, I may have missed that.
No, it's okay. I was saying a question then from Doug. So when you were discussing, so it's sort of similar to the way that like hatching would work in other engraving software, sort of a similar sort of setup in terms of like deciding the way that the laser crosses across the graphic.
Yeah, definitely. It's the same concept of you have fill and you're using lines to fill that object.
Makes sense.
So,
I have to say, so you began to touch on it there, but I think, Tim, the next thing you were going to sort of talk to us about is kind of a cleaning pass, like a way to kind of go through. Please, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, not a problem at all. So, well, for this fill style, I'm going to fill in using parallel lines. There's also different filling parameters before we get to the cleaning pass. So we have line distance. So this would be the distance between every filling line that you're trying to place down. So by default, at least my software here defaults to 0.1 millimeters. I like to set it to 0.05 just so we can get a bit more of a tighter squeeze for all the lines, a bit of a cleaner finish. The next options down below would be to change the angle of the lines. So we can always change the angle. So right now they're being put at perfectly horizontal. We could always change the angles a bit. We could also provide, if we zoom in to the actual numbers here, we could see the lines that we're putting in. If I change that to 0.01, you can see I have less lines now. Now, what's really interesting is that in this area here, I could also change the contouring. So I can close the polygon. Again, with the angles, I can leave the contour on or off. So the software will see the contour of the letters that I'm working here with, and I could easily turn that off as well. The next section would be the cleaning pass. So the cleaning pass is a low power run pass that just cleans up the surface, make sure that everything is nice and tidy. The way we set up a clean pass is by heading down to the cleaning section and enabling this check mark. The next thing that we'd want to do is select which layer we're going to be running the cleaning pass. So right now it's set onto a same layer as my text would, but I want to change that over to any other of my 16 layers that I have here. So I'm going to select it as my red layer. You may also notice that it's cleaning everything outside of the word, so it's not actually cleaning the actual words themselves. And that's because my cleaning style, which is right below the cleaning parameters, is set to surrounding. I could change this to either both, so it'll clean the contents that I'm making and the surrounding, or just simply the contents themselves. And I prefer to clean only the contents just because it gives a bit of a cleaner edge. At the same time, I can also change the line distance for the cleaning passes as well, right below in the advanced options. When I click on that, I have this dialog box that pops up. And just like how in the fill style and the fill parameters, I could change the type of line style that I want to go through the cleaning paths. So I can select bidirectional or parallel lines, and just like before, cross line options as well. I can also choose the spacing for the cleaning as well. So I'm going to set it to 0.05 again. I can also change the angle and the cleaning borders of everything as well too. So after you're done, you just press close. And now you've set up a cleaning pass and an engraving pass. I'm going to be doing this on some black anodized aluminum as well. So after I'm done setting everything up, I have the project here set up. I'm going to go into my marking settings, which are back up here, the graphic properties. I click on the marking settings. I'm given my material parameters, which I think if I got right, I did not change. So for the sake of this project, I'm going to change the materials to my project materials rather than the material database. So once I do this, it will change all the settings that I previously made for the cleaning pass. So I'll just go back and select the cleaning pass again, go back to my marking settings, make sure that I have everything selected under my standard settings. It's all set to the black layer. And now I'm more or less ready to start my project, but not just yet. So I'm going to try to get rid of the square. So I don't actually have to delete the square. What Speedmark allows me to do is to click on an object and simply deactivate this layer. So I can either decide to have this engraved or completely skip through. So to get this done.
Sorry, Tim,
yes.
Great use of that feature is you can actually import the drawing. Say you have a pre-manufactured plate or tag, or maybe it's a pen that you're engraving pens.
Yeah.
You can import a drawing of that, deactivate it, and yet let it still be visible. So it gives you a visual of what you're marking on. So you can do that with any item in the list. You can deactivate, and you can also make it visible or not visible.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually what I do with my bottle openers. I will have the outline of the actual bottle opener so I can use it to line up everything. And then I'll deactivate it after I've lined everything up and get the engraving done nice and accurately.
Wow.
It's a great tool. So, oh, yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask. So I never knew that. I didn't realize that Speedmark still worked within the sort of same 16 color system as Job Control does. So there's a lot of sort of skill crossover between the two softwares.
Yeah.
Can I ask? So, Tim, I mean, I know maybe technically it's not the same, but is Speedmark almost working with vectors then? Because you're sort of creating items and shapes that are scalable on different parameters. I mean, I know you're adding custom fills and things, but because you're working with layers and you're working with scalable objects and text, it's not too dissimilar from when we've seen you working in like Illustrator. I know obviously it's not as powerful as Illustrator, let's say, but this actually makes it seem very like approachable to somebody who's used to working with a vector software. Oh,
definitely. So a lot of the imported files that you can put into Speedmark would be bitmaps, DXF, and PDF files. So a lot of the work that I actually do for Speedmark is done in Adobe Illustrator. The issue comes along is that when you try to import a fully filled in vector, when you import it into Speedmark, it will take away all of the fills and only leave the outlines. So you still have to do the custom filling within Speedmark.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Last question to the two of you as well, really quickly. Is there any benefit to having, so I know you had to set up the spacing of the lines and the type of lines in your cleaning pass in the same way that you did with your fill. Is there any benefit to making them either, like, would you want them to be identical to the way that you set up your fill? Or would there be a benefit to having the cleaning pass, do perhaps a bidirectional fill where the actual fill itself was only, horizontal? Does it sort of make a change to the engraving at all, or?
That can be done, Don, in certain situations. The cleaning pass can be used to change the contrast of the surrounding area or actually clean the area. Say you have slag left over. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish, there are sometimes advantages to using a different angle, but also you can even do a double pass clean, which means you go very fast with low power, so you're not affecting that base material as much.
I see.
So
Okay.
a lot of
okay.
different options that optimize the process.
That makes sense. Okay. Tim, also you mentioned you said PDFs, DXF. So if you had a drawing that you'd already you said if you had a drawing that you'd already created in Illustrator, you're able to import it directly into SpeedMark.
Yeah.
As a PDF. And when you're doing bitmaps, then you're controlling the density. So the settings change a little bit when you're using different file formats. Some, again, you would say set it at 500 density instead of going in and changing your line and your line distance.
I see. Okay.
So most of it is vector based.
Makes sense.
We can also do bitmap.
But I mean, a vector-based system, like say, allows for some of that scalability as well. I mean, this is perhaps a stupid question, but in the beginning, Tim, you showed the area that you had marked off with the tape. So the one difference, I suppose, or a principal difference for someone who is more familiar with, let's say, like a speedy system or a flatbed system, what you see here in terms of the square isn't actually your entire marking area, hypothetically, or is it? Is this the same as you would see in job control with like you're seeing basically a 1-to-1 representation of the bed?
Yes. Yeah. So this working space, the 120 by 120, that's the space that I have to work in, and that's the tape that I've also marked off on the speed marker.
I see. Okay. So this represents the marking area itself, not the entire bed of the speed marker.
Yes,
I see.
exactly.
Okay, that's my fault. I see. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's not a problem. So let me just get back to it. So if I were to click on the object that I want to deactivate, I can either right-click on it and select activate/deactivate, or when I click on the object, I could also go up top here and select this button that says activate deactivate, and that'll deactivate the layer. Now it'll still show the object in place there. The only way I'll know that it's deactivated is on my tree over here for the program tree. It'll show that my rectangle is all grayed out with a little X on it saying it's deactivated. So now the only area that I actually have that will show off in my marking is the Trotec 123. So the next steps that I'm going to be taking is actually creating the settings that I need to be able to mark or just simply engrave on my anodized aluminum plate here. So to do that, I will select my project materials, because remember before, when I went into my marking settings, I made sure that my material parameters was set to project materials and not my material database. So the pencil icon over here up top of the page would be the project materials, and the can of pencils and stuff, that is the material database. So I'm going to press on project materials, and if you are familiar with our software job control, this is where you're going to find the 16 different layers of colors that you can do to choose different styles of settings. So in the past, so here, let me actually click out of this, because I need to make sure that I've set my cleaning pass correctly. I have, and I've set it to my red layer. So I'm going to open up my materials again. I'm going to check mark my cleaning pass for the red layer. And now I can play around with the settings here. So knowing that I'm going to be marking on anodized aluminum, I don't really need too high of a power setting. So I'm just going to put it down to 40. I'm going to run it at 2000 millimeters per second. I'm going to keep it at 50 hertz as well. For my cleaning pass, I will just simply run it at 10, because this is, I believe, a 30-watt machine. It doesn't really need too high of a power to clean. I'm going to make sure that it's running at its full speed as well. So afterwards, I will press on the OK and Save button, and that's going to save the materials and settings that I just chose for it. Next, I want to try to...
Sorry, Tim. The advantage with using project materials is that those settings stay with this project. So you can change your database and it's not going to affect these settings. So it's just a safer way to set up a project and keep those settings with that project.
Yep. I was going to ask, similarly to job control, can you also set up custom materials as well within your kind of material parameters to say sort of, if you find a setting for stainless steel that you love, you could sort of create your own custom stainless steel parameter, let's say, and save that to the material database?
Definitely. In the material database, you can create new materials. You can edit materials. So say you try it and you make a couple of fine adjustments and then just save it as another material name. You can also go into the material database and take over the material settings and then transfer them to your project materials as a starting point. So there are a lot of tools that simplify how you navigate through the material database and how you can save and create things. So it's very open and flexible.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that for sure. Wow. And sorry, Tim, did you say 2,000 millimeters a second?
Yes.
Just wanted to be sure I hadn't misheard that. Okay. Sorry.
No, yeah.
4 years later, and I still find that like, okay. Cool.
All right, so within the settings as well, so you can change the power, the speed, the frequency of the laser. We could also go into our advanced settings, and this is where we could open up stuff like how many passes we want the laser to do, the Z offset of the laser, the duration, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a ton of advanced settings here as well. So just before I actually start the project, I do want to go over some quick details as well. So Speedmark also has the ability to create serial codes. So if we ever need to have a serial tag, a QR code, Speedmark is able to do this. Right below the text options, we have codes. And if we click on codes and we click on our working area, we can simply throw in a barcode information. So whatever information we might need in this barcode. So for example, I'm just going to write, I'm not sure if that's how barcodes work actually. I think it might need numbers. I'm just going to put in random numbers and we're going to press add. Oh, okay. Okay, we're just going to do the default one. So here we go. We've now thrown in a barcode. And same thing goes for QR codes as well. Right beside the barcode button, we have a QR code. And we can click on that. And with QR codes, I do know I could put in whatever text I do like.
You could also use this as a hyperlink, presumably, or something like that as well, if you wanted to link this to a website or... Wow.
And there we go. Now we have my code over here as well. So I'm just going to put this.
So he's using the auto mode, which automatically creates a code that's optimal for the number of characters that you're embedding. You can also force it. So if the specification is a 12 by 12 QR code, you can go in and specifically limit it to that size. But the great news is Speedmark has automatic code generation. So if you don't have a specification or you're not familiar with them, as Tim just showed, simply type in what you want to be in the code and it automatically builds it for you.
And I mean, for anyone who's less familiar, I'm, maybe it's just me, but also with QR codes, I mean, the majority of smartphones today with the camera can very easily interact with a QR code. This is something that you can incorporate into your marking for, as you said, Andy, earlier, serialization or for, identification of parts at a pretty easy, I assume this also is able to, pull data from an Excel sheet or some of the other functionality that I assume Tim might be working up to, but, some of the other things that I know Speedmark is capable of doing.
Yeah, you can extract data from a CSV file or an external database. So a lot of tools to import data or images.
So I said, best kept secret. This software is so great and so powerful. Okay, Tim, forgive me. I'm sorry. I get all excited.
Oh, that's not a problem at all. So below the codes, this is where we have all the external importing options. So as mentioned before, we have BMP, DXF, and PDF. When you do so, you're prompted with a little option. We could select the source. And this is where we could choose almost any project that we need. So I have all the projects that I have for today's stream set up here. I'm not going to give away the pattern just yet, but if I were to import the business card that I was just doing, I'd press open and then I'd press add. The software would recognize the PDF by layers, which I've done beforehand in Adobe Illustrator. Then it would open up this business card file here, which I have separated into different layers. So if I want to select multiple objects within the working space, I can press down on Control and mouse click on the objects that I want to move. And just like that, I'm able to move the object that both the objects that I want. I have them right here. And as you can tell,
you can also group those together now.
Oh.
So if you right click on the two highlighted, you can group and ungroup.
Oh, perfect. Oh, that makes everything much easier. There we go. Perfect.
Sweet.
So as you can tell, when I did import this PDF, I don't have any filling on any of the letters that I've imported, which means that I would have to put in the filling. So I believe if I ungroup everything, just because, oh, it just disappeared on me. And we're just going to redo. And break grouping. So I like to break the grouping. Well, I broke the grouping because I'm using the outline of the shape to align everything and use as my sort of virtual jig. And then the rest of the file, which I can select in the tree here, is seen right in this area. And this is where I could go along and fill the area. Now I have a filling on each of the characters I put in. And just like before, I can just simply deactivate this, not have it shown in my marking, just like that.
Also, for eagle-eyed viewers, if you ever need to get a hold of Tim specifically, that is his specific email address. So if you have a great question for Tim, so I will ask. So you mentioned the tree, and I can see you interacting with it, but I mean, what does that represent in terms of, like, is it sort of a workflow indicator for the laser or for the user?
I believe it is. I believe in the order that it's going. That's the order that it's going to do the projects in.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. And it's not always a marking or engraving step. It can also be programs, sub-programs. You can use move axis commands. So it's a flow of the entire process. And you can grab one of those items and simply drag it below another and change the sequence or the order of engraving.
So in terms of optimization, I mean, you really have, because that was something I struggled with the speedies in the beginning, let's say, for example, in terms of optimizing things like cut lines, and, the orders in which something would engrave or be cut. This really gives you the flexibility to kind of do that. I mean, it really is just a visual representation. If I'm reading it correctly, it's sort of, we're going to do this piece and then this piece and then this piece. And you're saying you can also factor in just things like a Z-axis offset or just, other parts of the workflow that the machine can do.
Right.
Wow.
Go. So I'm just adjusting everything so I can fit it onto my business card here. Make sure everything is nicely aligned.
Don't leave off the barcodes. They're very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now to actually get started on the machine, what I will do is I will go through the 4 sequence of buttons that I use to help myself align everything and make sure that everything is nice, put into place. So on your keyboard, there's going to be the F9, F10, F11, and F12 buttons. The F9 button, when you click on that, will show the entire area, the active area that you're working on in the actual field of view for the lens. So it's a bit bright outside, so it's a bit tough to see the outline of the laser here. I'm just going to turn off the lights here. You could see, I'm not sure if that's coming through on the camera at all, but there is an outline of the working space. So this working space outline is showing the 2 barcodes and the text I'm going to be marking onto this plate. So unfortunately, I don't believe it's coming through too well on the camera.
I'm not sure if you're able to shut off, like you said, the light inside.
Oh, I did.
There.
Yeah, it's just really bright outside.
Yes.
Here, let's see if I can close the lid. Will it peer through a bit? Oh, no, my hand gets in the way. It's just barely there. Yeah. So that red square, that is showing the working space where I put Trotec 123 and both of the barcodes. So F9 will show every active field on the actual laser bed itself. F10, let's say you want to move something into a certain position, F10 will help you lock something in a certain position. So if you find that you've placed an object ready and you want to keep on interchanging that object in a certain jig, you can use F10 to lock that positioning. F11 is the selected tool. So if you have selected a certain object that you want it to showcase where it is on the bed, you can first off select the object in the laser bed. So if I were to go here and select Trotec 123 and then press on F11, it will only show me the selected area of the Trotec 123. So now I'm going to go back into F9 so that it will show me the entire working area. I'm going to remove the sticky note that I had placed down there.
Very important step.
Yep.
I might add. Yeah.
I'm going to turn on the lights again. And then our execute button, which is our F12. And in case of emergencies, escape is always to stop. So now I will start the machine. Quickly run through that. Going to go through a cleaning pass. And then we're done.
Wow. You really can see the difference too in the area that the cleaning pass went through. I mean,
Oh,
what a
yeah.
difference seeing that in the barcodes. Wow.
And with the F11, it is real-time representation of the positioning, so you can use your movement buttons to move it to a new location and then save it. So it's great for positioning, initial positioning, or as you said earlier, changing the position at any point.
Yeah.
Oh, so if your marking area appeared to be slightly askew, you could then use the arrow keys on the laptop to realign it to precisely the spot that you were looking for. Oh, well, that's a nice feature. Okay. So you mentioned jigs, Tim, and I know in the beginning videos that Lev was showing, jigs appeared to be a really important part of marking with the speed marker. I assume that's something that you would suggest for most customers when it comes to, particularly if you're doing quite a number of items at once,
Definitely. Yeah, I actually still have my old jig here. So over here, this is a jig that I made. I believe this was for a stream about a month ago with James. We were marking on different types of materials. So we're marking on a business card, a dog tag, a random, I think a door tag, and a pen.
Yes.
So I had put all 4 of these files into my, sorry, my microphone. Did it mute or?
No, you sound good.
No? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So we put 4 different designs onto my plate here in Speedmark, and I had placed 4 mounting points onto these sheets of acrylic. So I used simple bolts, so that the actual plate itself, this jig right here, can mount into the 4 mounting points on the Speedmarker's plate. The holes, I believe, are set by 16 centimeters apart, but I was able to get that done. I was able to get the jig all mounted up perfectly in place, and then using the Speedmark software, I was able to align and position everything perfectly and start the jobs. And they all got done in one go. I believe it took, 20 seconds to get all 4 of them done. It was incredible. If you do want to check that out, the stream's still up on our channel. It's definitely worth a watch.
Please go check it out. Thank you. You like we rehearsed it. I had a quick question here because we're getting into the last 10-15 minutes. I've been interrupting Tim far too much, as I always do. A couple quick questions from the chat. Not sure if you covered this already, but the typical lifespan an operator can expect from a fiber laser source, Andy.
Okay. Another huge advantage with fiber lasers, the MTBF, or expected life of the source, is greater than 100,000 hours of marking time. That's not power on time, that's actual marking time. So that's 10 and a half years of continuous engraving or marking.
Ow.
So if you only use it for an hour a day, you have 990,000 more days left.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
Most of this is theoretical, but we've seen great lifespan out of the sources.
Well, and that's huge though, because I mean, so to my knowledge, as we were sort of touching on earlier, these lasers really, I mean, when you're talking about an industrial setting, you are talking about marking a lot of pieces at once typically. I mean, one of the biggest advantages of the speed of a machine like this is going to be, the ability to do 100 tags, like you said, 1,000 pens, right? So knowing that you're going to have that facility, not only the speed to do it, but then the capacity to do it for the next 10, 20, 30 years is just that much more of a selling feature, I would imagine. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Johnny. Yeah, fiber lasers generally last until the heat death of the universe.
I like that.
Yes, indeed. Johnny joining us from our UK branch. He is also very super knowledgeable when it comes to the Galvos. We'll have to have Johnny back one of these days. He is one of our best sort of long time guests. We've been very fortunate to have him on before. Just a really quick shout out to Tim here for this incredible artwork we're seeing. If you thought that barcode marking and part marking were the only capabilities of this laser, rest assured that it can do incredible artwork as well. It's one of the things I admire most about this laser is that it has I mean, 100% or 99% of the capacity that any of the flatbed lasers to, leaving aside the fiber source as compared to the CO2. But, you know, one of the mistakes I made, at least in the beginning with speed markers, was to sort of perhaps pigeonhole them into sort of one area. And I really think, you know, this incredible file that Tim has here, that's so cool.
I was waiting for that.
Is just to showcase that, you know, no matter what you'd like to do with this laser, it still has an incredible capacity. Yes, 11 is a great point, though. The jewelry, promotional items, industrial applications, probably the top 3 market segments. One question I will throw to Andy, and it's one I really like to ask our Galvo experts, is if somebody has a flatbed laser already, why might they consider adding, a Galvo laser to their current laser lineup?
Some of the reasons we discussed earlier: cycle time, quicker cycle time. Deep engraving, if they need to, they get a project that requires deep, you would need to go to Galvo for that. But also, a lot of our customers that have speedy systems only have CO2, and they have customers come into their shop where they bid on jobs that require direct metal marking. The best way to go to that is a Galvo laser. We do have options for fiber in our speedy systems as well, but it's somewhat limited. We can't do deep engraving. Again, it's slower speeds, but it can be done. So there are a number of different reasons, but typically those are the major reasons: cycle time and just need of the capabilities of a Galvo laser.
Absolutely. I mean,
and we have a lot of customers that expand for that reason.
This is exactly, I was going to say the same thing, which is any general engraver. I mean, this opens you up to a whole new realm of different types of promotional items and personalization that with a CO2 laser would either be, you know, far more difficult or just not possible. Johnny makes a good point too, which is also the addition of a rotary. I mean, we have rotary attachments. Yeah, Tim has it there. This is something we've touched on this in the last few weeks of streams, but you know, we're looking to kind of put together perhaps a rotary only stream coming up pretty soon for the Galvo machines, because I think it also, I mean, Andy, is it fair to say that that encompasses a really big segment for these machines, is sort of that rotary, as you said, you know, perhaps drinkware or you know, any sort of circular item kind of marking.
Especially in the jewelry industry. We have ring chucks. They're specifically for rings. So yeah, precious metals, we have a lot of customers engraving on.
We didn't really get to touch on it too much, and I know it's going to be a forthcoming stream, I think, but you also mentioned some of the DS machines and the 3D marking that's possible. Is that something you can give us kind of a very general overview of, you know, what the future looks like for these Galvo machines? I mean, just because Ruby is being introduced to Galvo machines, I mean, I would encourage customers not to sleep on all the cool new stuff that's coming up for the Galvo machines, because they are expanding at an incredible rate right now.
Yeah, the DS option, which is dynamic shifter, what that gives is the ability to change the focal distance to engrave around a curved surface. So a quick description of it, say you need to mark around drinkware, but you don't want to use a rotary. You want to keep it, say, put on a V block and not rotate it. It takes the graphic that you want to engrave on the drinkware, and you put the measurements in, the diameter, the X and Y position, and the Z height, and then it automatically calculates where the Z position needs to be to wrap it around that object. It's all automatic once you enter your points and measurements, and it's quite impressive. It again gives you the ability to say, lay, as you can see in the video, several of the drinkware in, and without a rotary. You would obviously need several rotaries to do this without the dynamic shifter. So it's a great tool for any curved surface. Doesn't have to be drinkware. It could be industrial pipes or, you know, a camshaft, whatever it might be that has that curved surface. It optimizes and keeps everything in focus so that you get a consistent engraving around that curved surface. And that is an option with our standalone workstations, the SpeedMarker 1300 and higher systems.
This is something I discussed, briefly with Rob last week, but I'll ask you as well, Andy. If somebody wants to see a demonstration of the Galvo machines in the United States, where might be the best place that they could come? What are the different, Trotec US locations that have some of the Galvo systems that we could do a demonstration for someone?
Sure. Well, we have several locations across the U.S., 11 offices, and more than half of them do have Galvo systems in their showroom. So depending on your location, a local showroom may be a good option. If not, we have our headquarters in the Detroit, Michigan area, and we have several systems there. We can do either on-site, you can come visit us, or we can do virtual demos from that location. And we also have Arlington, Texas, that we have a few Galvo systems, and we can do virtual from there as well. So a lot of different options as far as demos.
100%. We are pretty much in the same boat here in Canada. We've got 4 locations across the country, one in Mississauga or like Toronto area, one in Montreal. Yeah, that's where you can come meet Tim if you didn't grab his email already earlier off his business card. One in Montreal, one in Calgary, Alberta, and one in Vancouver. But we do also offer the virtual demonstration. So I would encourage you, no matter where you are in the world, to head to troteclaser.com and reach out to your local Trotec and come on down and see us or see us over the internet. I mean, one of the best parts about coming down to see us in person, or if you're in the UK, obviously go see Johnny. Bring your own files, bring your own materials, and we'd be very happy to do a demonstration either of a Galvo or a Speedy system or both. To give you the opportunity to see one of these machines in action. I promise you, it is just as impressive as what Tim has shown here. We are just getting to the top of the hour here, so I know Andy is incredibly busy, Tim is incredibly busy, and I'm also here, so I don't want to keep you guys too long. But I do want to say thanks very much to everyone who's been watching from home. If you're watching this later on YouTube, a huge thank you to you as well. Any questions, feel free to toss them in the YouTube comments. We will always do our best to get back to them and answer them in a timely fashion. We can also shoot questions to Andy. He has been very generous with his time this morning and has been very great about answering my silly questions today, so I always appreciate that. Any sort of final thoughts, gentlemen? Tim, I got to say, thank you for running us through the software. Anything we missed out on? Anything people should look forward to seeing in the future?
The CL Galvos.
Yeah.
I think we're not sure when those are coming out, but I'm excited for those too.
100%. If you're not familiar with the CL Galvos, they are, if I'm not mistaken, in a nutshell, very, very similar to the Speed Marker Galvos, but with that CO2 laser source. So you have some of that same speed of marking, but with the ability to incorporate the organic materials that a CO2 laser is best suited for. Yes, Lev, thank you. Also, the photo engraving webinar next week. Andy, really quickly, over to you, sir. Anything that we've missed out on? Anything you'd like to let people know? Any contact details or best place to get a hold of you?
Well, we covered quite a bit, and there's always more. Our software has so many features and capabilities that we could do this for 3 days and show everything. But if anyone has questions, please reach out to me or anyone else at Trotec. I'm not sure if you can post my email address, but feel free. There we are. Well, it's actually Andrew.Wellen. So
close.
Correct that. It's not Andy, but Andrew. So I want to thank everyone for their time. And one other thing I didn't mention, we can also do application testing either in the US or Canada. And that, gives you a good representation of exactly what to expect from our system.
Absolutely. So, particularly if you're planning to attend a virtual demo, it's something we love to do, to be able, again, just to add that extra level of comfort for the customer. And there's nothing better than seeing a demo where it feels really relevant to exactly what you'd like to do with the laser, hypothetically. So, but yes, on behalf of myself and Lev in the background, Andy and Tim, thank you all again for watching. We hope you'll join us again next week for our photo engraving webinar. All the best.